Hey, it's Kelly. Welcome back to my channel where we talk all about gentle skincare, sometimes self-care, and today we're talking sunscreen. Today I want to review the Benton Cica Gel Sunscreen Serum for you. This is a fairly new release from Benton. It came out about 6 months ago or so, but I haven't seen a lot of reviews on it, and I think that this sunscreen is fairly unique in the K-beauty world. So if you're so ready to hear all about this sunscreen and my thoughts, give the video a big thumbs up and let's jump right in. So this is a chemical sunscreen. It uses 4 all-new generation chemical filters. This sunscreen does not contain any artificial forms of fragrance. There's no essential oils and there's no drying forms of alcohol. I do want to point out the use of rose water in this formula, though. It is here, I believe, to add a very faint smell or scent to the product. It's probably masking a little bit of that sunscreen smell, but it really is quite faint. It's a little bit fruity, a little bit floral, but it's incredibly light. I really had to get in there to pick up and detect that smell. I'm really not smelling it on application, and it's certainly not anything that is lingering, but because I mostly talk about fragrance-free products on my channel, when there are those like in-between plant extracts that can kind of offer some scent that may pose some sensitivity issues for certain folks, I do like to really point that out. But what I found interesting, while the ingredients list is quite long, they haven't jam-packed it full of lots of unnecessary plant extracts or lots of extracts that are going to be offering scent to the product. It really is just the rose water here, and it is so minimal. But what they have packed the ingredients list with is a lot of antioxidants. We do have tocopherol, which is vitamin E. There's centella in here, as well as a potent antioxidant called ectoin. And then they've also included a couple of different forms of hyaluronic acid. This is a sunscreen that claims to help to hydrate the skin, so that's really how they are achieving it. Notably, this sunscreen does not contain niacinamide. I know that that's a big bonus for a lot of viewers, so I wanted to point that out as well. And they are using an ingredient called silica. Now, silica is used in sunscreens to help boost up the UV protection, because what it does is it allows the sunscreen to spread in a really even, uniform manner across the skin and to help create that film. And that film is what protects the skin. That really helps the UV filters do their job to protect against the UV damage from the sun. And so silica is really helping with the texture here. It's helping with the spread and the film forming abilities of the sunscreen. But silica also has a natural mattifying effect for skincare products. It helps to control excessive oil. It helps to kind of absorb excessive oil. And so it does actually really play well in this sunscreen, because it does definitely affect the finish, which I'll show you in just a little bit, but it's also affecting the performance and the protection of the sunscreen. So this lives up to the name, Cica Gel. It does have that gel cream-like texture. It's not a lotion. It doesn't have that moisturization feel to it. It's not a cream. It's not thick and heavy, and it certainly isn't a sunscreen essence. Now, this is kind of like a weird term that you find in K-beauty sunscreen products where they'll call it a sun essence. And really, to me, that describes something that feels a lot like skincare and something that might be promising like a dewy finish. While this has that lightweight, airy appeal like sun essences, it doesn't have that dewiness to it in the finish. And I really think that that's the silica at play here in the formula. So the gel cream texture spreads really beautifully, really evenly across the skin. You will feel that like gel-like hydration quality to this, but it dries really fast on the skin, and it doesn't leave you with that. Sometimes it feels like even the most lightweight sunscreens kind of feel like they're just sort of sitting on top of your skin, like a dewy, essency type of layer. This really does dry down like a sunscreen, in my opinion. It almost has like a grippy type of finish to it. Not like full-on grip primer feel, but it's a little bit more dry to the touch at the surface than a lot of the more essence like K-beauty sunscreens have. So no white cast here that I can detect on my skin tone. And what I really like about the texture of this, because it's not that thicker cream, you're not getting that like streakiness. It really does just uniformly apply across the skin. So you're not getting, see, sometimes you don't rub your sunscreen in super good and you're like, oh, there's a little sunscreen streak. This is a really clear type of sunscreen. It doesn't build up in your eyebrows or in dark hair. I think that this would be very beard friendly just in the texture because of the way that it absorbs and dries on the skin. It doesn't build up around hair, which is really nice. No pilling detected. I did test this against one of my most pilly moisturizers and I didn't get any pilling with this at all, which was so nice. It's really easy to reapply on the skin. And this is actually something that I feel like works so well underneath makeup. I think because of that kind of dry type of finish at the top surface. I did skip out on primer quite a few times using this sunscreen, and I was really happy with the way my makeup sat on my face. It didn't break up, into those little patches, and it didn't ball up in like creases or anything like that. I feel like it was really still nice and smooth. So if you are really looking for that sunscreen that's going to work well under your makeup, I think that this would be a good one to look at. So I've been really happy with this sunscreen, and it has kind of delighted and surprised me in ways that I was not expecting. So this is actually a product that I've not heard a lot about, and that's really why I wanted to do the video on it, because this is certainly not a trending sunscreen. This is not something that you've probably been hearing about from a lot of different influencers, maybe a few, but I personally have not seen a lot of reviews on this. It was released in the middle of 2023, I believe, but I hadn't heard about it until I saw it on YesStyle. I was browsing around trying to get up to, that like free premium shipping where they ship it to you really fast. And I'm like, okay, I need to add more. And so I came across this sunscreen on YesStyle and I was like, oh, this is a new one I haven't heard of. Let me just quickly check into the ingredients, especially because Benton, it's a brand that I've been a fan of since my very early days getting into K-beauty, well over 10 years ago, which I feel like I'm dating myself a little bit, but I've been into K-beauty for so long, and Benton was one of those first brands that I really fell in love with and was very loyal to for a long time. But I do personally feel like their identity as a brand has changed. I feel like they're in a weird spot with their brand identity recently, but things have changed. I feel like they have shifted into a little bit more of that territory where they are including more essential oils and things like that in their products, which, by the way, I want to be very clear. I don't think that those are necessarily bad ingredients. I know people will disagree with me on this, but when I say no essential oils or I'm avoiding that, I'm just advocating for my sensitive skin and my, skin sensitivities. And I know so many folks have come to my channel throughout the years to look for those types of picks because they're in the same predicament where essential oils are an ingredient that irritate their skin. So I just want to be clear on that. If it doesn't irritate you, it's absolutely fine. Anyways, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that while this is a new release, part of the new Benton identity, they have not included those ingredients in the sunscreen. So I threw it into my cart. I was like, might as well try it out. I wasn't expecting much because I do personally feel like K-beauty has gone through this renaissance with the sunscreen releases over the last 2 years. For sure. They've definitely upped their game, for sure. The market is super flooded right now with a lot of similar formulas, though. A lot of sunscreens that feel almost identical to each other from different brands, right? And so I've just kind of felt like there hasn't been a ton of innovation in the last year in sunscreen releases. We got flooded with a lot of great new options, but I haven't I've tried so many of them, and that's just the fatigue of the job that I do, which is testing a lot of sunscreen. I do get exposed to a lot of brand new products kind of all at once, and so it's very easy for me to feel like, it's nothing special, it's nothing unique, it's nothing new. I do think that that's a problem generally in the skincare space right now. There's a lot of dupes and similar things out there because everybody's trying to get into the skincare game. It's a really long explanation of why I'm impressed with this, but this is doing something that I have not really felt in other sunscreens. The finish of this sunscreen is a little bit different for me. While it has an essence-like feel on application, the finish is not essence-like at all. And I think that this is going to be a really great sunscreen for those who are struggling with that really dewy, shiny shiny look with their sunscreens or really struggling with a lot of oil on their skin. The silica in here is working really hard to create more of a neutral type of finish to the sunscreen. I don't believe that it is a mattifying sunscreen. I don't think that if you go in shiny, you're going to come out looking not shiny, but I think if you go in shiny, you're not going to end up looking shinier. Does this make sense? That's what I mean by a neutral finish. My skin generally tends to have a bit of dew on it because I like to layer in lots of emollients and oils and things like that. And so on me, it doesn't add extra shininess. It just maintains what my skin is already doing. But what I also really appreciate about this sunscreen is if you do tend towards being a little bit oily throughout the day, which I can in my T-zone a little bit, it doesn't contribute to like extra oiliness in the middle of the day. You know, sometimes you put your sunscreen on, you're like, looks good. You look in the mirror at like 3 p.m, you're like, looks terrible, looks like a disco ball. I did not experience that with this sunscreen. One of the very first times I was testing this out, I put it all over my face and I was like, oh, you know what? I had to run out of the house. I'm not going to bother with any makeup or anything. It's just like a quick errand. And so I'm driving. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this new sunscreen on and I didn't check to see how shiny I am. Are the people at the post office going to think that I am like, you know, like beaming into space with this like super wet looking skin? And I looked in the mirror when I parked my car and I was like, hey, actually, this isn't very shiny at all. I'm very impressed with this. Okay. And then as I continued to test it out, I really noticed that the silica works to help keep all of that in check throughout the day. So that was really impressive to me. And that is what makes this a little bit more unique in my opinion. The way that it's not dewy, the way that it's not shiny. The grippy kind of finish that I was talking about too, that it dries so quickly and it almost like grips like a very, very light makeup primer in a way. You know, I think that that also helps keep this sunscreen put on your face. This is a problem that I've noticed with a lot of those essence-like sunscreens. If you sweat in them, which, you know, they're really not rated for sweat resistance, but hey, sweat happens, right? They do tend to migrate and shift into your eyes over a couple of hours, and then you start to get that eye sting. Have you had that happen before? I have it happen actually quite a lot. I can sometimes be a little bit of a sweaty person, and so it's the worst when your sunscreen gets into your eye because you're sweating, and I did not experience that with this sunscreen. I actually put it through the ultimate test, shoveling multiple times. We got dumped with snow a couple weekends ago, like 12 inches of snow in like a 2-day period or so. It was pretty rough, the shoveling, and it was like that really wet and heavy snow, so you really had to like dig yourself out. It was like very, very much labor to clear the sidewalks, and so I was definitely sweating even though it was cold, and I was very surprised that this did not migrate into my eyes from sweating. Again, not rated for sweat resistance. Let's be clear, this is not a water resistant sunscreen, but because of the way that it forms the film on your skin and stays put, it's not migrating into your eyes if you do happen to not be wearing the sweat resistant sunscreen when you're sweating. And so I really, really appreciated that. And that's actually a claim of this sunscreen, is that it doesn't cause eye sting. And I really think that the reason why they're claiming that is because of how good it is at just staying put on the skin and not being all like shifty, you know, how some essence like sunscreens can just really move around on your face. And so that not only ups the protection of this, but it also ups the comfort of this sunscreen as well. And so that's why I said I wasn't expecting much from this. I thought this was going to be like every other Essence-y gel cream sunscreen on the market, and it certainly shares a lot of similarities with them, but there is just that little bit of difference in the finish that really helps with that really, really super uber shiny look. But it can also help if you do have issues with your sunscreen shifting into your eyes in the middle of the day. So there's a lot of pros to this sunscreen, right? I mean, the lightweight, airy feel to this sunscreen, it's not overwhelming, it's not weighty on the skin. I really like this neutral finish and the way that it helps to control excessive oil on the skin. I love that it doesn't contain niacinamide. I think we all need a little bit more of that in our lives, right? And so this is something that I wholeheartedly recommend if you are trying to avoid niacinamide in your skincare products. It's a great one to look at. no white cast, no pilling. I love that it works so well underneath makeup. I mean, a lot of pros to this, right? But there are some cons, just a few. I mean, there really are no perfect skincare products out there, especially when it comes to sunscreens, right? I mean, I'm going to mention it again. The rose water could be a con for some folks out there, especially with uber sensitive skin who would prefer no like excessive plant extracts. I don't think there's excessive plant extracts in this formula, but the rose water, you know, could be a deal breaker for some, not for a ton of people, I think. And I think that it's still a really good pro that they're not using the artificial forms of fragrance, the fragrant compounds, the really potent essential oils, no drying forms of alcohol. So I think they've done a good balance here with that. But I do want to point out, as much as I've been praising the silica in this formula, I think that it has a lot to offer to this sunscreen, and something that I think positions it as a really great sunscreen, especially for oily folks. I don't think that this is going to be the most perfect sunscreen if you suffer with chronic dehydration. Silica may not be a good match for your specific skin condition because there is that oil controlling property to it. If you don't have that moisture to give, and I think a lot of dehydrated folks, even if you do have a lot of oil on your skin, if you're suffering with that underlying dehydration, sometimes those mattifying oil controlling types of ingredients can take essential moisture from your skin that you desperately need to help fight the dehydration and the transepidermal water loss. And so this is a sunscreen that I will say I did feel a little bit of tightness in my very chronic dehydrated areas in certain times when I was testing it. Not always. My skin barrier is in a really good spot right now, but there were certain moments where I was like, oh, this is kind of dehydrating my skin just a little bit. So that's something I want you to be aware of if you're really, not just a little bit, I'm talking chronic dehydration. You're kind of always dealing with that. Or if your skin is just like really, really dry, silica again may not be the best match for your skin. But if you're more combination, if you're definitely more oily, if you're dealing with a lot more oil on your skin, I think that this could be a really great sunscreen. And like I said, something to combat those really shiny, really dewy essence like sunscreens out there that are probably the bane of your like oily existence, right? This could be a really great match for you. And so because there are a few cons to this, it's not going to be for everybody, but on the whole, I feel very positive about this sunscreen. I think it needs a little bit more attention. I'm going to be rating this an 8 out of 10. So I'm curious, have you tried this sunscreen yet? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if this review was helpful for you, you watched all the way to the end, but you're not subscribed to my channel, please, I would be so honored if you would hit subscribe and come join our community, especially if you love K-beauty and deep diving into ingredients and texture. That's what my channel is all about. So turn on notifications so you're never out of the loop. I hope you are healthy, happy, and safe wherever you are in the world. Thanks for being here with me today. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.